Hey, you guys doing? Welcome back to the Eat, Sleep, Race podcast. My name is Hugo. I'm joined here today with my brother Eric, and our special guest tonight is Dave from HeadGames Motorworks.
I could be a brother.
You could be my brother too.
I'm definitely a brother.
Yeah, I look alike, you know.
Yeah, definitely.
We have the
Good feature.
facial features, yeah.
So, Dave, give our listeners a brief history of HeadGames and also who you are.
So I'm Dave Localio, and I own HeadGames Motorworks. We've been in business for 22 years now.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we started off as a domestic headboarding company, and then we quickly progressed into doing mostly sport compact and pretty much the top echelon of all the motorsports guys in the sport compact world.
Awesome. I've known you for a long time. The head industry, or I would say the machine shop industry, is mostly geared towards everything that has to do with an engine. You in particular kind of only specialize in cylinder heads. Is that something different or out of the norm, or is it just kind of like?
Well, it's definitely rare. Like most shops, I would say most engine shops have a cylinder head program. But HeadGames Motorworks is actually named HeadGames Motorworks because I too thought that we could do engines and cylinder heads, put it all together and have that package. But I quickly learned that I did not want to do that. Like, I did not want to build motors. I can't be one. I had to pick something I could be one of the best in the world at, and that definitely was not building engines. Can I do it? Yes. Can I machine it? Yes. I went to school for it. I know how to use every machine in a machine shop, but it's just not something I wanted to.
You know what you're good at.
Yeah, I honed in on what I'm most interested in and what I'm really good at.
Right.
When did you realize into your business that, you know what, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do the complete engine package. I only want to provide the cylinder head package.
Well, when I left Musi's, and I had
Pat Musi.
Pat Musi's.
Oh, so you used to work at Musi?
I worked for Musi for 3 years, and I was in charge of the cylinder head program there. And then when I left there, I got fired.
Pat Musi fired you?
Pat Musi fires everybody. He's like, but he would expect most people, like if you know you're in with him, he would get mad at you and he would fire you, and then you show up the next day.
Oh.
But I always told him that, like, if you're going to fire me, that's it. Like, I'm not coming back. And the day happened, and I thanked him. I told him I appreciate the experience, and I left. And I didn't have any place really to go, and he actually still let me work out of there. Like, I was able to.
So you did do that, what you said. He let you go, but you still can't.
Yeah, I still came back.
You're on good terms.
We're actually still friends to this day. Like, Pat is actually part of the reason why it's named HeadGames, because Pat used to say that my head was physically, like, it's really large, and he used to call me Head, so that my nickname at UC's was Head. And he would bring customers back to just say, you know, like, you ever seen a noggin on a kid like that before? So that's how HeadGames got the first part of its name. And then Motorworks was because I felt like I wanted to do engines, and I was working out of like a 200 square foot room basically, and I'd have to just farm everything out. Like, I couldn't do anything in house, and that wasn't going to work for my business. So I had to pay for an assembler. I had to pay for a machine shop. I had to pay for all these things, and I wasn't going to make that capital investment to do it myself. So I figured it's best just to leave that alone. And I made the jump into just doing cylinder heads. I feel like it's something that we could really excel at and be one of the best in the world at.
That's pretty awesome. I know from hearing, for a while, all your porters in your shop were female. Is that right?
No. So head porting wise, it was always been men. Tiffany still works at HeadGames. She actually runs the show now. Like, I don't really run it, the day-to-day stuff. And she would do sanding, but she would never grind. but she did all the machine work too. She would do all the valve jobs. She was in charge of ordering parts, and she basically, because back then it was 3 of us, and it became 2 of us in like '08, and then now it's 8 of us, and she's always kind of ran the show.
Okay.
She no longer machines really. Once in a while she jumps out there, but that's not her mainstay. Her mainstay is in the office.
So if we could just take it back a little bit, you mentioned working with Pat Musi. Now, prior to going there, how much experience did you have, machining, dealing with head?
Well, I went to school in Houston, Texas.
Okay.
I went to School of Automotive Machinists, and I was there for 2.5 years. And we followed the NMCA tour. Like at the school, we built a drag radial car. It was an all-motor drag radial car. And because we were following the NMCA, it's the National Muscle Car Association. So Pat was super popular at that time when he ran the Pro Street stuff. And so we were seeing him all the time. That's how we kind of got a relationship. But and
originally you guys, we're all from Jersey, so.
Exactly. And I was kind of, I can't say it wasn't my only job choice out. I also went for a job interview at Comp Cam, so I was going to run their NASCAR program. But I just wasn't into camshafts, and I wanted to come home. But I'm sorry, we're going to a different story. But the experience was, like, when I went to school, I got to learn how to use all the machines, and I was the director of missions there, and they would always want me to have tours. Like, they wanted to bring people on tours of the school, and the porting room was the one place that you could call for me, but had an excuse why I couldn't hear you. So I would just go in there, and that's how I kind of found my love.
That was your safe haven.
That was my safe haven, and I would go in there and I'd pour it, and then I'd flow stuff, and I would go and machine it, and it just turned into, sometimes we wouldn't leave the school, actually. Like, sometimes we would pull all-nighters and just there to learn, like, not to do anything else.
That's pretty. So you followed up for the NMCA stuff. What was it?
The National Muscle Car Association.
So when you followed that, that was like a competitive car that the school had?
Yes. So we showed up at Mike Kurtz's car. Mike Kurtz had an 87 Monte Carlo SS, and we built a small block D-stroke. I don't know, we all get too technical, but it's a 377 motor, all motor, on a drag radial. I don't remember how fast we were back then. I want to feel like we were in the 9s or so. And we showed up at the first race, and we set the record for the class, and we won the race.
Oh, that's pretty good.
And we're just some tech school that just shows up at a race. So it kind of pissed off a lot of the big name drag race guys that had motors in these cars, like Billy Glidden, and there was a couple other guys, and they kept tearing us. By the third race, they started tearing us down because they wanted to know, why are we
that much better?
Like, how is it that, like, this school just comes out of nowhere able to do that?
Kind of
underdog story.
Yeah. And they got us on some bullshit for it was a valve stem. Like, we made the valve stem smaller so we can get more RPM out of it. I mean, it was like something stupid.
Yeah.
So then,
I mean, they really tore down into that motor, like.
Oh yeah.
Try to figure something.
Every race. Yeah. And then they had to pay us every race too, because they pay you a bounty.
Right.
And then for the following season, we built a school car, and we did a big block Chevy at that point. It was also a D-stroke. It was a D-stroke 502, and we took these. So the ports come they come square. So we made them like really, really big, and then we put epoxy in them, made them oval. And
no one was doing that back then.
That's outside.
So nobody has the time to do it.
Yeah.
Like, you're at a school, you have nothing else to do.
Yeah, you're just learning, and like, let's try this out.
Yeah, let's just do whatever. And you have all these hours that you can I never wanted to leave because it was so cool.
And you had access to, like, I guess, the top machines, the top equipment.
I wouldn't say top equipment, but we were definitely,
I mean,
like, we had equipment.
You had everything you needed.
Yeah, anything a machine shop has, we had to our disposal. And then I went to work for Pat Musi, and I was kind of moonlighting with Brian Tooley. I was dating a girl in Kentucky, and Brian Tooley is at the time he was kind of taking over the Ford market. And you might hear of Brian Tooley racing now because he's like huge in the Chevy market. But back then he was
A Ford guy.
he was a Ford guy.
Okay.
And I was over there, and because of how popular Pat is, when the NMCA tour went to Bowling Green, he heard all about me working at this guy's place, and he fired me. So, yeah, and then I went looking for a job, and then like I just felt like nobody wanted to give me any money. Like I was looking at working at Holly, like Pat tried to get me in with Holly, because we were doing all the development work for Holly at Musi. So like he was like, "Oh, I'll get you a job there," and then that was not going to work for me. So I ended up I just started HeadGames Motorworks.
So, what would you say helped you get on the map? Like, what did HeadGames do to make it to kind of like
What did the beginnings look like?
So when I worked for Pat, we were building a Chevy Silverado for the Sheikh of Bahrain, Abdullah Hamid, and he's my age, and I'm 46 now, I think.
That's it?
I think we're around the same age, whatever it is. So anyway, we're around the same age, and the guy was cool as hell, and we became friends. And so when I left Musi's, you know, it was right around, it was July, I guess, and then September 11th happened, 2001, and I heard that the Sheikh of Bahrain was in New York, so I give him a call on his cell phone, like, "Hey man, you're here," and he's like, "No, that's my brother," and then, you know, he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm not doing anything." Like I'm thinking about I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. He's like, let me introduce you to somebody. So he had this guy, I can't think of his name right now, but anyway, he had him drive down to me. He took me up to our Arslanian shop, Bullish Motor Racing, and they were building 2 Toyota Solaras, and they asked me if I wanted to be a part of it. And I said, well, I'm not really into imports. Like I'm a domestic guy, but it's 2-door cars. I'm in. And then they showed me the roster of like people who were racing, and I saw, you know, some domestic guys that I knew. And I was like, this is going to be awesome. So we showed up.
Probably like Matt Scranton and all of that.
Exactly. Matt Scranton was on there. And Matt Scranton ran the NMCA. He had a Mustang that was like undefeated. So I'm like, oh, this dude's like, I feel
He's the top tier stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So he was building 2 cars, and I said I'd be willing to be a part of it. We showed up at 15 races, and we won 13 of the 15 races, qualified number 1, and it really just put HeadGames on the map at that moment for 2 JZs, but the internet really wasn't there.
There was no internet back then.
There was like, I mean, it was there,
but not to the extent. Like,
no. So like when guys say, so to give an example, to get in the Honda market, I opened up the phone book and I called Impo Performance and I talked to Sav Leone, and I was like, are you guys looking for a cylinder head guy? And he said, yes, we are. And then he's racing at Dopey, and you know, he's doing all this stuff, and we won some championships there too. But that was all from a phone book, and the other one was from a phone call. It wasn't like, you know, I posted something on Facebook or Instagram, and or MySpace, I guess it would be, right, from back then. But I didn't have any of those things to do.
It's all word of mouth. Yeah.
And also, do you like again, we're going back on this, you know, just working on cylinder heads. I often think, especially on the import side, you know, nobody was even thinking about the cylinder head back then. You know, I feel like, you know, when I started getting into cars, you know, all my friends, no one talked about cams, no one talked about stuff. Unless you were doing like the all-motor car in a Honda or something, everyone wants like, you know, Todas and these higher revving cams. Everyone was just, you know what, we're going to make power. We're going to throw a turbo on, throw as much boost as we can at it, and, you know, pray.
There wasn't many parts available.
Right.
There was really nothing available at the time. So like when I got involved, the first thing I noticed was, you know, I would be competing against, well, John Lingenfelter was racing in our class, but like if I stayed in the domestic side, I have to compete with Pat. I have to compete with John Lingenfelter. I have to beat or compete with these guys who are like in it for 30-something years, who have such a name. There is nothing like that going on in the sport compact world. There's nobody really. There were some guys that were doing it, and some of them are still doing it, but there was not a lot of talent there. And I felt like I brought the talent of grinding. There wasn't like, not that I was unmatched, but like I was one of very few people.
You understood the science behind it.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say you were unmatched. Don't sell yourself short.
Well, I'm not saying I'm the best. I'm saying I'm one of the best, So like,
You're good at what you do.
I'm good. I know that I'm good at what I do, but I'm not going to say I'm the best. Absolutely not. But at the moment, I could see that at least I knew in our area, there really wasn't much of that going on. There really wasn't anybody who would compete with me locally. There was a lot of people on the West Coast where it kind of started, but there really wasn't anything here.
Now, also being from Jersey, we were lucky enough to have some pretty big companies, valve train companies, engine part companies that were close by. Like Manley was out here.
Yeah, Manly's still here, but I mostly dealt with Ferrea at the moment. Down back then, it was I actually couldn't purchase their stuff. We were at ACO, and I went up to John and Nelson, and I was like, the fastest cars here all have my cylinder heads on it, and I can't purchase your parts. Like, I'm not direct with you, So they were like, we're going to change that. And they like brought me under their wing, and we developed a lot of parts together, and we did stuff for the 2JZ. We did stuff for the Honda. We did a lot of research and development because we can try things on these cars that are making gobs of power. And if anything fails or doesn't fail in that, that it's going to be a good product for the end consumer. And a lot of that has not changed. I mean, we still do that.
That's pretty awesome. As far as going back to the whole Bahrain thing, how did your involvement with Ara is a huge name. Did that also help you? Like, this is just because Ara's program was strictly developed after he was a street car. Then from there, he got sponsorship money. They came out with a 2-car team. We talked about this in our previous podcast of the importance of having more than one car. How do you think that helped his program be so much better than the competition?
Ara's program actually, so he started it with his own money. It was Bullish Motor Racing, and then he got that Streak Low.
Right.
That was I think it was the next year. I could be mistaken.
So when he had the 2 Solaris, that was still him.
That was still him, yeah.
When they were yellow, like the yellow.
They were white, yellow. It had like the bull on the side of it. Yeah, that was all him. And then, really, I don't think anything changed. It just meant that somebody else was paying the bill.
No, well, as far as like just having the 2 cars for development of like taps, like getting the cars down faster. Like, all right, like, hey, maybe I don't know if he had 2 different style cylinder heads, but at that point, you could have had one with this cam or this setup, and another one with a different setup to see like how they would perform.
We absolutely did a lot of testing, and then it was when we do a lot of testing, you really rely heavily on a tuner to give some feedback because we're directly related to air and fuel, right? So how much more fuel you're gonna have to add into it or take out of it because of whatever we're doing with it. How much timing are you gonna put into it? So when we got to work with George Iwanu, he was the tuner of that. That was very instrumental to have 2 cars because now you had not only can we try different things, but you had to beat both cars to get into the final round. And nobody was doing that.
Right.
So like we had double the chance of setting that record or what have you. We had all that data to get it. And there were 7 engines on rotation. I did all the cylinder heads for free. I did 16 of those for free just to get my foot in the door, to get a sticker on the car. And there was many all-nighters because there's 2 cars. Like, there was I was young, so like multiple all-nighters just trying to port the head, trying to make a race. Sometimes I would have to go up there and sleep at their shop, and I had to really be thirsty for the success that we were getting because there was a lot of effort that went into that.
And I think even, you speak on the effort and how, you would pull all-nighters. I think you still do that to this day. I mean, we talk randomly about stuff and you just tell me, hey, I just came back from Granis's place and I was there all weekend helping him with an issue. And, he's close by, but he's not like 5 minutes away.
Yeah, now he's
in Florida. But,
yeah.
I mean, I just hear the stories of the behind-the-scenes stuff. And I think that probably helps equate to some of your success because you're that guy. Like, hey, I'm in a jam. I know I got to call this guy, and he's probably more than likely going to come and help me and save me.
It's hard to beat somebody who refuses to give up, and who is you're not going to outwork me. Like I'm going to put the work in. I don't. A lot of people they kind of chicken out at that stuff, like when there becomes an effort or it becomes inconvenient, they don't want to do that. But racing has taught me, because like you'll see this when you go to the track, that there is so many people that like pull all-nighters at the track. They're also there, pulling motors and transmissions and all. They're building stuff like on the concrete, laying on the ground all night.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They're at World Cup. It's cold as hell, and they're
Cold. Sometimes it's raining.
and that being around that community, I feel like I kind of fit there because that's
your vibe.
it's my vibe. Like I'm you're just not gonna
You
out.
feel at home. You feel at home.
I feel at home, absolutely.
And I mean, obviously we know each other personally. I feel like you've helped people that they're not even your customers. You don't even do business with them. And I've heard of, people being in a jam and they're like, I see on the internet, hey, does someone have such and such? And they're like, oh, call Dave.
Yeah.
Or hit up Dave, hit up HeadGames. Like, I've heard of you doing, overnight machining on some heads to
There was
get them back into,
yeah, for the drift guys.
for the drift guys.
That came around the town like I
Yeah, they're like random guys. Like, hey,
yeah.
can anybody? And it was like, oh, there's a guy named Dave.
Yeah, showing up the shop at midnight and like
If you be real nice to him
yeah.
and pet his cat, he might get you squared away.
Yeah, but and those guys, funny thing is that I've never really poked anybody's eyes out on that either. Like I don't charge
Yeah,
for doing that stuff. It's just because I want to do it.
I think that's just your love for the motorsports and just
Yeah.
for the competition.
It's because I eat, sleep, and race it. You know what I'm saying?
I like what you did there. I like what you did.
I like that you threw that in there.
Yeah. I mean, but it really, it's I think to be a part of it, right? So like my horsepower is my religion. Like I'm so deep that you can't get it out of me.
Right.
Like I think about it all day. At night, I drag race. I have like a drag racing game. That's what I do at night to relax. Like I don't,
It's still in you.
I still in me.
It's not even like I'm gonna go do this.
No, I do nothing else but cars. And I know it affects some people around me because they get upset that like I don't go on vacations unless usually there's cars involved,
Like a race.
like a race or something,
We're gonna get you to do that. You need to do some vacations.
I probably need to. But
Crystal will probably
yeah.
appreciate that.
I love you, Crystal. I know. She always says it. She got me to go on one, and then there was like a Jeep thing going on.
Popped on over.
Yeah, I'm like, guys, no,
I like this.
she can't get away from it, because I'm like, oh my gosh, there's like, I don't like Jeeps, but I was out there looking at Jeeps.
Look at these tires.
Yeah, some big ass tire. That's just not me. But I mean, I don't know. You have to be anybody in what we do, or at least what I do. Like you have to just dig deep, and you can't let it go. You have to do it all.
So we've been talking a lot about just, personal experiences and, a little bit of business, but for the general audience of porting, without going super crazy, what would you...
Explain porting to a child. What are the goals when you're doing a port?
Yeah, like why would someone say no, still...
I'm getting hyper focused on that. So,
A very intelligent child.
I'm redesigning where air and fuel meets inside of an engine,
Mm-hmm.
and then We're also redesigning how the flame travel is in the combustion chamber. Like we're going to change all that.
What are the goals when you do a head port? Like, what are the ideal goals that you're hoping to achieve?
Because I think some people always be like, oh, I want the biggest port. To make the most power, I want the biggest port, smooth exhaust. This is, and that's not really true, because
It's a bunch of hogwash.
I've learned a lot from
There's a lot of marketing,
just
right?
Yeah, it's
like I've learned a lot from you just talking. You're like, well, yeah, like if you're not flowing your heads, how do you know that this big port is actually doing what you think it's doing?
so like on the flow bench, the bigger you make it, the more obviously it's going to flow, but it's like, where does it flow good at is what I'm looking for. So like you can make a port gigantic, and if you're only trying to, I think most people look at the high number or like the biggest number on a flow bench or like a flow sheet, and that's like the least favorable number that you want to look at, because your engine or your valve is going to go up and down twice, right? So it's going to go up and down, and then you have everything in the middle is more the meat and bones than the peak or the stop, so you really need to concentrate more on like the area under the curve versus just a peak number, right? Where everybody looks at this peak number, so they're putting big valves in it, they're doing all this stuff, and like a big valve, most heads for what most people are doing is going to hurt the setup. It's going to decrease torque. It's going to make the car slower. It's going to make it laggier, because I'm going to try not to get technical here. I apologize. But like, so it's like, say the cam has 9mm lift. The oversized valve will start flowing. It's most like, it starts really coming on around 9mm. So everything and it kills it below that. Whereas a stock size valve is going to stop flowing good at 9mm. So like really where there's no gain there, there's only losses.
Right.
And people overcam it. They do all these things. They make the port real big. And if you're making under 1,000 horsepower, the cylinder heads are so good nowadays that you can do minor things, pick up airflow, and just make it more reliable versus big ports and all that other stuff.
So in this case, bigger is not always better.
It's never better. I've never seen a case where it's better. I've never seen a dimple port outbeat me. Like the dimple port is really funny because only one machine does it. Like, I mean, I guess you could do it if you had a pick, but I don't really know. It's a gimmick that started in the 60s. And I guess if we had carburetors, I'd be more about it, but we don't have a carburetor. So you're not really worried about atomization. That's what it's supposed to be. So I've never really understood the premise behind
Like the logic of it.
Yeah, and
in a modern setup.
Yeah, like so the Rottler CNC is the only one that does it, and that's for good reason, right? Like if it was that badass, everybody would be doing it. Like, oh, Centroid would do it, DMGs would do it, like every machine would do it. They're like, oh, we have to have this.
And you're talking about a CNC actual machine. Do you use? I know for the longest you don't really do a lot of CNC stuff. I know you've got your port designs and stuff digitized now, but up until pretty recently, you were still do everything by hand, right?
I was doing everything by hand. I've recently, so we also used to do like every cylinder head under the sun, and now we don't. Now we concentrate on, we're just gotten so busy that we can't facilitate that anymore. It takes a lot out of me because I'm the only guy. We used to have another head grinder, but like I'm the only guy now who's porting heads, and I'm also the only one that could problem solve an R&D project like that.
Right.
And that's just too much. So we concentrate on just the ones that we can do the most of.
Which is so what is your current like I guess make and model of cylinder head that you guys do?
The most that we do is the Subarus. Number one is our Subaru. Number two is 2JZ. We do a lot of Nissan stuff, like the RBs are pretty popular, BMW, S55, B58, Dodge Viper. We do all the heads for Calvo.
Shout out to Antonio, another Jersey native.
Hey, Antonio. So yeah, I mean, we actually I met Antonio way before all this stuff. Like because he's from West Windsor, he's right from around the corner from me, and it brought me a Nissan head, a 300ZX head, which we don't work on anymore, but that's where he started.
Yeah.
And I got him a job at Full Race, and then helped him get a job over at I'm trying to remember.
Cobb?
Well, he got the job at Cobb.
Okay.
But yeah, I helped him into the industry, and we're still good friends, and
Solid guy.
he's a solid guy. Yeah, a little crazy, but he's solid.
I think everyone in this industry there's not sane.
Some are just a little bit more insane.
Yep.
Or like
Different
a different kind.
Yeah.
Different kinds of
Different
insane.
levels.
Yeah. Like if people actually got to know me, they might think I'm a little insane too, but
I know you when I asked Dave, hey, like, you want to be on the podcast? First thing he asked me was, can I bring my cat? And I said, I've
always
not. I'm a little allergic. Like right now, I'll probably be sitting here with eyes red. So
I'm a recent cat owner now because my girlfriend has a cat. I've never had a cat in my life.
we'll have to change.
I'll say this. I'm sold. She has a great cat. She's chill.
Cool.
She's a little fat black cat. So
Black cats are especially cool. They are. They're very cuddly, and I'm on my second. What do they call them? Cats. I mean, they're like baby pumas, but they actually have like a name to them.
oh, you got me there. I have
Yeah.
no idea.
That's the problem with getting old. See, I can't remember words, like simple words. I just can't remember that.
yeah, it's a cat. I don't know the name.
So just to get back on topic, because shout out to cats, but it's Eat Sleep Race right now. You mentioned that you're the only one doing the grinding and like head porting or whatever. I know porting as a craft is a very like tight balance between art almost, I'd say, and science of it, the logic of it, the concept of the airflows and everything that you're working on. How's it been trying to find, I guess, other head porters and competent workers and people to bring on to take a little bit of the workload off you?
That's the most difficult part is, I think it is an artwork because you're carving aluminum with a metal grinder
Right.
that ice sculptors use as well. So it's really hard for, say, if Picasso had like a big job, like he's not going to hire another Picasso.
Right.
It's just not the same. So it's really difficult to find somebody like that. Now, we can say that we found something like that in a CNC machine, so we can digitize it, but it still is a dummy, and it doesn't know. It knows where the cylinder head should be, but it doesn't,
There's no feel.
well, so sometimes I get ports back and like half the port's not ported, and I have to go in there and I have to blend it by hand.
Mm-hmm.
And you wouldn't have to do that if I hand ported it, or
It's done in one shot.
it's done one shot because I know where the port is. But people are like, well, CNC machine is more precise. And my argument to that is it'd be more precise if we're making widgets or we're making billet cylinder heads. Like then every one is the same. But in this instance, we're dealing with an imperfect part.
Right.
And it never is the same, ever. So there's still some artwork, there's still some,
Finishing touches.
the finishing touches, which are easier to find somebody who can
Then you're
figure
going
that
to
out.
teach that too.
Yeah, I'm currently trying to teach 2 of my employees how to take over that part of my job.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because I was going to say, what would you recommend for someone who wants to become the next Dave? Like, what can he do to try and gain the experience and knowledge to try and get to that level? Because obviously, you can't do it forever. There has to be a
Yeah.
next coming of a new generation,
Yeah.
So, what would you say to someone who's very interested or has goals to get to that level, and like how can they get there?
The biggest thing that helped me was going to school. Did I leave there with the experience of being able to really port a cylinder head? Looking back, no. Because when I went my first day at Musi's, they're all making fun of me of like how I ground, how I grind stuff. Like they thought I sucked, and they really helped me hone my craft. I worked under some really good guys that taught me how to port. But going to the School of Automotive Machinists is really what took me to the next level, because it gave me food for thought. I learned so much there.
It's the foundation that
really
you have to have.
Yeah, I mean, I still hold it to this day. I saw things, like we built a turbo Buick there, and we made the heads too big. And that's where I learned that I didn't want the biggest port for anything I was working on, because it made it lazy. Like, I learned that way back then. And then I also picked up many friends who were like-minded. That, like, my one friend, Dan, he works for McLaren, not the car, but like McLaren Racing. And at McLaren, they put a smaller valve in one of their race programs, and the car picked up. And I was with Sav, Leone, and we tried smaller valves in his Honda, and it picked up. And that's how we...
Kind of the opposite of what everyone,
what everybody else was doing.
would think would be like, hey, this is going to take me to the next level.
Yeah.
And it was actually the complete opposite.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we were doing. Like, we were going oversized. We're doing all this stuff that now is like, I won't do it because I learned...
You already know.
Experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went through that experience, but I wouldn't have experienced any of that if I had not gone to the school and really... but if I didn't apply myself, and that's what it really took. It was when I was young, I got in a lot of trouble, not only in school, but with the law. And when I went to school, the owner of the school saw that I was a talented person, like I was a smart person, but I wasn't applying myself. And he took me under his wing and he said, I'm going to give you a job here and you're going to do it. And I did. And that's what it really took. Like, you can't be half-assed about it. And a lot of people are going to be half-assed. They play small with their talents.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they might be talented. I see this every day where somebody's like crazy good at whatever they do, and then they do nothing with it.
Wasted potential.
Wasted potential.
Story of a lot of people,
A lot of people. So, like, to be me, you can't waste your potential. To beat me, you can't waste your potential. And I'm all about it. I'm all about seeing somebody, because when you are a successful person, and that I'm not successful in a financial sense, but I think, in the headporting side, I feel like we've proven my ideas and my designs. I feel like all that's proven itself over and over again. That I lost my choo-choo. I totally lost my choo-choo. I scratched my face and I totally lost my choo-choo.
I mean, I think we know where you're getting at, particularly in your field. It's something that kind of, like you said, has to get taught. So it has to be taught to you, because you can teach someone. Someone can learn the idea and the
concepts.
The concept of what head porting is and this, and learn about flow. But there's stuff that you can't get taught. It's more of experience. Like you said, when you worked with Musi, you worked with a couple guys that, kind of taught you their ways and how they did stuff and why they're doing it. Because everybody, again, we can all sit here with a grinder and, go ham with the cylinder head, but what are we doing? Why am I making this shape the way it is?
So I was going to bring up my YouTube, because I put a lot of content out on the YouTube and on my Instagram about how to port something. Not necessarily like how to port it, right? But like how to make the shapes.
The broad sense.
Yeah. Right?
You make it look easy. You're one of those guys I watch on YouTube. I'm like, I could do that. Then I go in the garage.
The Bob Ross.
The Bob Ross.
The difference is I go in the garage and do what Dave does, and my shit come out crazy.
But if you did it every day for 30 or 40 hours a week, or maybe more, it might come out badass.
In all our podcasts, we always talk about advancement of materials and also like just shit that we didn't see from back then to now. And I think right now in our space, it's kind of the everything's billet. Like we're breaking everything that's cast, we're breaking everything that's, OEM stuff. So now it's, leaning towards the billet side. And I know a few years ago, the big craze, especially in the super world, was the 2JZ billet cylinder head. Because the blocks are kind of proven now. There's a couple companies out there that, got that down packed, making great power, blasting, not splitting them. And I think the last missing link was the cylinder head. And I kind of heard a lot about it for a few months, maybe even like a season. And then it kind of like started fading away. And I know you were working on some. You want to touch on that?
I could touch on it a little bit. I don't want to upset anybody, but at least on our side, it was a complete failure. So they sent us a billet cylinder head, came from the Middle East, and I didn't know where to put valve to guide clearance. I didn't know what was good for the cylinder head, because these are important information. That's important information for you to know, especially because we're talking about materials, so we don't know how that material expands or contracts. And if it's the first time dealing with it, you want to know from the manufacturer how you can use it. And they couldn't really offer me any information. They said, just do what you normally do. So I did what I normally do, and the head the valve would hold open at like 900 feet. It would just hold the valve open because the valve to guide clearance would close up and hold the valve. So they said I needed to open up the valve guide clearance, but once I looked at the head, like the seats were all beat in. I felt like the head's actually soft, so it really doesn't matter what I do for clearance wise. It was going to be...
You're going to have some variance.
It's in a warp.
It's going to fail.
Yeah.
It's just going to fail. It's beating the valve. Once it starts beating the seat in, we're looking at a soft casting, and I don't... And it was their kind of first time too. So like, we're all kind of learning together.
Everyone's learning, yeah.
I felt like when you're learning with... it's like anything. You want to have like-minded people together, right? So if you're learning together and you're sharing information and you're working as a team, then great things can happen. But that's not what I was met with. I was met with finger pointing and people. And he said, that company said, "Oh, yeah, we take it back. We're going to show you up." And I'm like, "Well, I know you're not. So you can take it back and you do it." So they spent a bunch of money, and the customer spent a bunch of money, got the cylinder head back, and it made it another 200 feet with all their stuff. So, but Cody Phillips actually, he took his cylinder head to a local guy. They went in there and they ground out like where the water goes. So the water is like pretty much the lifeline of that cylinder head. And they were able to open up the channels enough, and they opened up the valve to guide clearance enough where it works.
It worked.
Now he made 14 hits with it, and the car is still running. He went 680s with it. I mean, I don't think he's gone any faster with the billet head, or actually even longer than the billet within the cast head. The 2JZ is a totally different animal where, I mean, it's kind of an anomaly. Like, what else can you think of that you can make almost 2,500 horsepower of such a small motor? Now, 100 pounds of boost, 400 shot of nitrous. That's a lot for a cast head to take. But the problem we were having is that the head would come off the block and it'd be like a banana. It would warp up. And so the billet head's not doing that. And that's the key. That's the key. Now, I was burnt out from my experience, so I have turned down doing any of that. I did have Bullet from Bullet Blocks. They make the blocks they send us a billet head, and I wasn't exactly excited about the ports, but he seemed very eager to work. with us, and I can't say actively working on it, but like we are.
It's in the pipeline.
It's in the pipeline.
Development.
Yeah. He's much easier to deal with. We he'll share whatever information I need.
Yeah,
That's what I really need.
it's a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So you do see more billet cylinder heads, I guess, coming down the pipeline.
I see
Not just in 2JZ, but across the board obviously there's already billet heads for on a domestic side, for those motors, but I feel like we're at that point in sport compact where that's pretty much the next evolution of what's going to take the sport to the next level.
I believe that, or because now that Dart got involved, like Dart made a block, I'm really hoping that Dart brings out a cylinder head. Like there was Honda aftermarket cylinder heads back in the early 2000s. Like Elderbrock made one, but Javier shot that down. He said we couldn't have that. Back then, we could actually, Venom brought up building a billet head, and Ara shot that down, and so did Javier. Just so everybody knows, Javier Ortega was the head of an NHRA Sport Compact. So, and Ara was one of the faster guys in the class, and he didn't want to spend the money on it. They wanted to do everything with a cylinder, like a factory cylinder head. Looking back, that was the right choice because the cylinder heads were already, like, we were only making 1,400, 1,500.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't making any big power. And that whole combination, I probably would have done completely different if I would have done it today. But the evolution, hopefully, is to get a casted head that doesn't have water in it, and that we could use that. That's what I would like to see. I don't know if that's going to actually happen, but
in the perfect world, perfect racing.
In a perfect world, I'd like to see that. If it goes billet, that's pretty cool too, because I think that when somebody smart builds a cylinder head, they can make it any way they want to, then it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah.
I would love to learn I don't know how to do that stuff, but if I could learn how to make a cylinder head, I feel like I could make a ringer. But we're not there yet.
Have you worked with the OE?
Oh no, I wish. That'd be cool. Hit me up. Hit me up, Ford. But you know what though, Ford, speaking of the Ford program, so Ford is directly across from Faria booth at PRI, and they displayed, Faria had an EcoBoost head that I did on display. Usually there is some kind of HeadGames cylinder head in that booth, and I did the combustion chamber, and it's uncanny how close that combustion chamber was on the 3.5 EcoBoost to the Raptor. Like, it was almost the same. It was almost like some engineer walked over and he said, man, that's cool.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. I'm going to go do that. Or some guy was just me. There was like a me over there. It was like, that thing sucks, and we need to make that better because the EcoBoost combustion chamber is terrible. Like, I can't even believe that there was a guy there that said, man, I'm proud of that, and I'm going to put that out there. And just, somebody need to kick him in the front butt.
I know you do a lot of behind the scenes stuff, especially with on a performance side, and you've been in development with different parts, material, and
mostly valve train stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
yeah,
stuff involved with the valve train. Like, how good of a feeling is that for you that you're working with such big companies that still call you for input into these different projects that they have going on?
I mean, I guess, like, I don't have an ego about it because I feel like it's the change I want to see, right? I'm from Jersey, so, like, you're going to hear my opinion and I'm not going to hold back. And that's, we're dealing with people who are not Northeastern people. And if whoever's watching us doesn't know how we are, we're a little different. We'll hurt feelings. We'll do whatever it is to Like if you ask for an opinion, you're going to hear it. And it feels good because you can definitely tell who is innovative and who is not, right? So I'm an innovative person. I'm always thinking about making something better. I can look at anything. We can walk around this shop and I could see how things could be better. Like I'll look at lines and it's just where my mind goes. So when you deal with other manufacturers, the only issue that I've seen is the same thing I was saying about the billet head, is that you have to be aligned with the right people. They have to have the same principle. They have to have the right,
like end goal.
the right angle. Well, not only the angle, but like they have to have the right mindset that they're going to improve on something and they're going to listen. They're going to try to be better.
It's not just like, hey, I'm going to make this and it's to figure out how to make it better.
Yeah. Or they just throw it out there.
And that's it.
Yeah. And I'm only talking about measurements. So like a lot of things that I improve upon, besides camshafts, like Greg from GSE and I work very closely on camshaft stuff. So we did a lot of development together on the 2JZ side on camshafts. And it was amazing because like some of the stuff that I'd been getting custom made is now on the shelf, and then he took it the next step over, and we did methanol cams, and we did all this stuff, and it was all from just working together and wanting to make something better. And he and I work really well together, but I've had other companies that I dealt with, or I've been accused, I guess like threatened to sue me because like I'm thinking or saying out loud things that are wrong with their product and things that like could easily be measured. Mm-hmm. Like you could just walk out to their shop and they could just take a Harbor Freight caliper and measure something not complaining about and change it. But instead they look at me as a complainer.
They get defensive, like, no, ours is perfect. You figure out some way around that.
Yeah.
Versus we can
solve the problem.
Yeah. Solve the problem, or prove me wrong.
Yeah.
So tell me I'm wrong, but show me I'm wrong. I'm okay with that. I'm all right with losing, right? And they should be too. But a lot of ego is a part of our community because we're a bunch of dudes, and they don't want to hold on to that. They're afraid to lose. They're afraid to be shown up like that.
Right.
But it really, whenever you deal with somebody who is like-minded, it feels really like you found a best friend. It's like any kind of relationship. And you go in through these, you guys have been with girls that like don't want to be on your team, right? They're always trying to pull you a different direction. They're always like, they're kind of they're not an asset anymore. They're a liability.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And sometimes they don't start off that way.
Right. Sometimes it starts good and ends bad, and sometimes it starts good and just gets better.
Yeah. And I would say sometimes that manufacturing relationship gets sick, and it becomes I've had it many times. It turned into something that was a liability, and I lost customers or something that I said, or nothing changed, and I just had to walk away.
Right.
And how do you, especially nowadays, with the internet and everybody is an expert at everything, how do you stay out of that conversation, or do you kind of engage in it, or do you just sit back and kind of just read and like, oh, this guy has no idea what he's talking about? Like, especially like there's a lot of comments I see online too, like people will post something, and then you got a whole slew of people just either bashing them, supporting them. It's kind of hard. Like, how do you navigate that?
It depends on how dumb they are. I guess. Like if somebody's really stupid and they're in the industry, I'm going to say something.
Because their voice can be heard and go a little further than
they're like
Joe Schmo in the back. Like,
they're harming my customer.
Right.
They're making my customer doubt me. And I'm not going to let you freewheel that. I'm going to go out and, I'm trying to be kind here, but
no, I mean, we don't have to go into names or anything, but it's just, I feel like, especially now, even in what we do and everybody else, there's always a basher. There's always a know-it-all that says that, you you don't need to go to HeadGames. You can go to such and such, and they do just as good of a job. But
that could be true. That could be true.
right. But that it's more of like hey, you don't really know what you're talking about as far as the depth of it. You're just on there commenting. Do you let that get to you, or
Yeah, when an internet professor, regurgitates something about, how this flows or how much you should be taking off, like, do you even engage?
Well, you have to.
Yeah.
Do you know why you have to? And I learned, Gary Vee taught me this. You gotta kill them with kindness. Because the reality is that you engage in that conversation, you get more posting on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your YouTube.
You work the algorithm.
Right? You're working that. And you don't have to engage, like, you don't have to be at their level because they're obviously dumb, right? Like, if they're making some things that they say are like, you way at world. Like, you are over there. I had one the other night. The guy, I went on this page. I had to see, like, what is this dude do for a living? And there was like a bunch of pictures of him playing in a band and a guitar. I'm like, you don't do what I do.
You can't
do what I do. But will I talk to you? Absolutely.
But how confident was his post? It almost sounded like he does it every day, right?
He is the man. He has been doing it for longer than me, and he's better than me. He is out there just waiting to take my job. But I was all about talking to him. And I've had people say, like, HeadGames, like, because they're not knowing it's me, but HeadGames, why would you engage? And I'm like, this is the algorithm, bro. Like, you have to engage. You have to talk. They, Facebook and Instagram want to see that you're engaging with your audience, whether it's positive or negative. And actually, the negative stuff makes more money.
So always.
I did a video on doing combustion chambers on a Subaru because some guys take a 2.0 block that has, I don't remember the bore size off the top of my head, but like, say it's an 87 millimeter bore, and then they put it on a 90 millimeter bore. Again, round numbers for all you internet know-it-alls. I'm not saying that's the right answer. So you can't run that size combustion chamber on both blocks. So people open it. It's a very common practice. All I was doing is, I'm so sorry. I was just showing how I do it. That thing, there were so many people MFing me on that, like how I ruined it. Oh my gosh, I can't believe what you're doing. That thing made me $600. Them all telling me how I was doing something wrong that I was totally doing right.
Yeah.
And I was all right with it. Because, and I engaged in it, but I didn't get mad. You just can't get mad.
Yeah.
People get mean.
Yeah.
People get mean. Thankfully, I'm not like they're not talking about how ugly. Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be that guy, but, they could talk how fat I am or whatever. But, like, if you're going to engage me, you better come
with some, yeah. You better have some experience, some numbers, yeah.
Yeah, you have to, well, I would say engage me to win, but, like, even if they went personal,
It's the internet.
I'm a funny guy. Like, you better come up with something good or you're going to get trash, bro.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be good. So I'd say, like, you don't have to worry about, because they say that says more about them than it does about you. It totally does.
I would have to agree. I think we're getting to the end of this podcast.
I miss you.
Well, I'm sure you'll be back for another episode.
I wanted to touch on something real quick. So we've talked about, a lot of good times, innovations, and things that you were able to achieve with HeadGames. But as with all businesses, there's ups, there's downs. What are some of the challenges you see running a machine shop or motor workshop?
There's so many challenges financially as well. Like, who your president is actually, it actually affects everybody, right? Like, I knew when Obama Part 2 came into office, like, I knew that they were going to attack, like, the EPA was going to come full force. I knew because Obama was all about that. And now Obama Part 2 is here, and now you see what's going on. Like the whole shift into electric and all that stuff, like that really it threatens a business that you've been into it for 20 years.
The entire industry.
Everything,
Yeah.
you know, I almost lost everything I owned in '08. I'm familiar with like the ups and downs of being in business, and it's not easy, and it's a really it's probably the toughest thing I've ever done, but I'm unemployable, so I can't like go and get a job. You know, like I think I would get fired again. But I think I touched on one of them was like, you know, who you're in partners with. Like if you're going to have people, you know, like manufacturers you're going to deal with, they need to be on the same page as you. They definitely need to be on your team, and you need to, especially if you're going to play in my arena, like my level, I guess you would say, which there's many shops like us. Not many, I should say, but there's quite a few of us that are top tier, and we need like-minded people to be there. And employees are really hard to get, like trying to train people. I think everybody deals with that. But when you're in a specialized field, it gets even harder,
Right.
because you can't just hire somebody who's from Walmart.
Yeah, you can't look at a resume like, oh yeah, this sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I have, you know, Tiffany came up, but she's been working with me since she was 18. She's in her 30s, right? She runs the place, but like she's been there for the whole time.
Right.
But I don't think I could get another one. Like I couldn't get another her, and I couldn't get. We've been through some employees, and some of them have been great, but it's just been tough to like train somebody in a really specialized field, and then you always have to deal with the financial end of that, and you have to deal with customers that are not as bright as you would hope. And you know,
I would imagine customers is tough because, you know, you dealing with someone who has a goal, an idea in his mind with no actual technical sense. And then,
yeah,
you know, like how often does that happen? Yeah, how often does that happen where someone goes, you didn't do what I thought I was going to do? Like,
or they fail, like they failed the head. The head fails, and it's not even something we touched, right? Like I had a Honda guy who he wrecked the cam journals. I'm like, we don't put cams in them. Like I don't know. Like how am I supposed to know that? He's like, oh, you're not going to own it. I'm not going to own. Yeah, I'm not going to own. That was like part of your.
That's your head.
That was part of your assembly. Like you assembled that.
Yeah.
I didn't assemble that. So like when you have to deal with customers who are not smart, but they're really keen on
Blaming.
MFing you and putting the middle finger at you and doing it online and everywhere else, it becomes very, and it's hard because like you want to defend yourself, and then you look like that guy.
but you also have to maintain like,
A level of professionalism and all that good stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like super professional. I'm not gonna lie about that, but like I've called somebody stupid when they're stupid. You know, like I'm from the Northeast. You not to say it again, but like it's
Part of you.
it's part of me. Like if you're dumb, you're gonna know that I think you're dumb. You're not.
Closing out, I feel like obviously your field is very specialized, and do you have like intellectual property theft of people stealing your design or your ports, so to say? Is that
We've had
in
that.
that world?
We've had that in the Middle East. There was a guy who actually, like, he posted that it was a HeadGames port, like showed a CNC machine, showed it was his port. It was a HeadGames port, and then he actually told me how, because I was able, through some other Middle Eastern customers, we were able to talk, and I was sitting there calling him a no talent asshole, and he was like, I only steal the best ones. And I'm like, I just want to fly over there and just beat you. But how far can that really get you? Because HeadGames is an experience. That's what I've learned to come from that, is that we offer a customer service. We offer intelligence on all aspects of that. So like, say you took my port. You don't have my valve job. you don't know how I blend it. There's so many elements to go to the rest of the combination. It's not just one thing. So they can steal the one thing, but they couldn't steal the show.
Right. So it's at the end of the day, it's like artwork, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
That even though someone can steal your port, so to say, they still can't replicate
The result.
yeah,
They
and the
can't.
package that you
Can't.
provide.
No. Well, anybody who is willing to steal, they don't have any talent.
Right.
That's the only reason why they're doing that.
Right.
Is because they can't get to that. They're not innovative enough to do that. So they have to steal. They have to like copy my parts packages or what have you. Like they have to do that in order to try to achieve that same success. But, and parts packages I'm okay with. I think that that's an important thing. And I think that people should probably steal those.
As far as like a proven combination,
Proven combinations, and it means that like whatever that we worked on with that manufacturer, it means that like more people are buying that, and I want to see that.
Yeah.
The ports wise, as I said, like you're not gonna do all that. There's no way. Yeah, it's like I agree. It's like artwork. I know I'm coming back to that guy with the guitar. That's what the post was about. I was saying that like, it's an artwork. It was a head that was hand ground. And I was like, and it takes a lot of guts to get there. It takes a lot of guts to like carve something and put it out there and say, that's mine. That's something I did. And the guy's like, that's not art, that's science. And you can't tell me. However, he's over there playing a guitar, going in a band, right? And you're going to tell me what artistry is? Like,
Imagine someone's telling him, it's not, music isn't art, it's science.
you have an electric guitar.
It's sound waves,
Like, if you had an acoustic guitar, yeah, maybe you're talented, but no. If you have an electric guitar, no. So it really takes a lot of guts to do, like to put yourself out there, to go against the grain, right? Because like everybody's oversized valves, everybody's doing all this different stuff, big cams, big ports, and we do none of that. Like it took a lot of, but it's all out of my experiences, and I won't allow people to come to the shop and like they can't say, oh, I bought these parts. It doesn't matter. Like you have to do it our way. It's not Burger King. Like
Right. So someone can't come in and tell you to do something crazy that goes against like your knowledge, your experience, and get you to do that.
I'm not gonna let you hurt yourself.
Right.
And that's what it is. Like a lot of people,
they don't want to hear that.
they don't want to hear that, and a lot of shops are selling what's popular.
Yeah.
And to go against the grain for that, to go against say, hey, I'm not going to sell that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to sell something that I believe in. It takes a lot of guts.
It's integrity. It's important.
Absolutely.
My name is Hugo. You can follow me on Instagram, Hugo ESR. We have Eric here, Hustler,
With a one.
with a 1,
Hustle.
not an L.
Ooh, I like that.
We have Dave here. Dave, drop your socials.
You can go on our YouTube. There's a lot of informational videos on YouTube, and that's HeadGames Motorworks. Go to headgamesmotorworks.com, or you can check us out on Instagram and Facebook under HeadGames Motorworks. You can also email me at info, that's INFO, at headgamesmotorworks.com.
And as always, make sure you like, share, subscribe the podcast on whatever platform you listen to. Thank you for listening. See you next time.
Toodles.